I'm in Amiskwaciy-wâskahikan to meet Jo-Ann and Jerry Saddleback. These two respected elders work tirelessly to share their teachings with many people in the local community. They both work as elders in residence, Jo-Ann at the Edmonton Public Library and Jerry at the Amiskwaciy Cultural College. I'm meeting them at Jerry's bow-making studio to learn about the work they do.
Jo-Ann Saddleback. I come from the Eagle Thunderbird clan of the Western Mountains. My mother was Christine Whiskey Jack from Saddle Lake Cree First Nations. My father was Stan Daniels from Kikino Métis settlements. Between my husband and I, we have 11 children. We have some 23 grandchildren and 2 Japan, 2 great-grandchildren. We have land in Samson Reserve in Amiskwaciy.
I'm curious about your thoughts or feelings about people my age or younger or older that are hungry to reclaim the language and learn the language.
We have now reached the generation of grandparents who don't know Cree.
You take a grandpa, Muslim or Nokum talking, you know, they're saying grandpa or grandma's talking, and then you're listening to them. What happens is that part of your brain starts becoming, becomes activated, and you start, it's formulating your own characters, making your own pictures, your sound, everything. It's in vivid detail, and it's becoming your story, and the story's flowing right through you.
That's where our languages come from. They come from the sounds of the universe. When it opens up that DNA that already knows that language, it's the language that you can speak to your grandmothers and grandfathers with. It's how you're going to access your culture. Our languages tell us who we are. It's everything that we are, everything that we do is within that cultural context, and as it should be. And that's where the language sits. Following that cultural process will get you to where it is you need to go. And when you get to that, what you have is culture, that it's a state of being. We do our best to carry on those traditions that our old people shared with us, and to keep up good work in the community. As we said, we're on a mission, and we may not be able to finish that mission at the end of our lives, but we will have left our children a legacy of good work.
Jo-Ann's role at the Edmonton Public Library provides her the space and support for her to work on projects that are meaningful for her and the Indigenous community in Amiskwaciy-wâskahikan. We sat down to talk about the importance of Indigenous voices being represented and ceremony taking place in the heart of the city.
This institution has a relationship with me, and I'm trying to kick that door open so that they have the relationship with the rest of the community. That's my job, to do that. And that's what I have to work on every day, to do that. And to have a big institution like this that's so prominent in the city, so important, so meaningful in the city, to have their 100% backup. I mean, that's huge. I meet a lot of young people, and they say, I want to know what you know. that's where I want to go. And I would tell them, well, that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to make sure you know that you have it for your family, you have it for your community, that it stays alive like that. And they don't have that kind of access, living here in the city. They're so thirsty for it. They're so lost for it. It just like a scream in your ear, all through your life, that you need to know, you need to have it. So the idea that people can access that kind of ceremony, or
that kind of working knowledge for Indigenous people that you know. You have a right to it. You're born with that right to know. You don't have to believe it, but you have a right to know it. That's what's important. I had to really think about, is my heart big enough? Is my mind expansive enough that can I love everyone who comes and sees me? And like I say, you know, that our culture is all about, the big goal of the culture is to reach that stage of kindness and compassion. I thought, well, that might get me there. It'll really challenge me, it'll really push me. So with that in my mind, I thought, okay, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to do this.
There's so many different parts of what you said that landed within me in different ways, things that I need to hear, that I need to be reminded of. So it makes me think of the impact on so many different people's lives that you and Jerry have. All of the different work that you do, all the different communities and organizations that you're a part of.
The library had wanted to have an Indigenous space. And I know that a lot of spaces, they want to reference a teepee, but I wanted that space to reference a sweat lodge. And I liked the Thunderbird that went along with it. And so it was always speaking in my mind and speaking in my heart. When you go into tirelessly, you will see beautiful syllabics on the wall there. That's big, big, big medicine. And it's in those rainbow colors. When the sun comes in, it changes and it shows those rainbow colors of that Thunderbird. I love it. And it says tirelessly. You go outside the door and you look at it, it has tirelessly, you know, that way too. So both ways, you know, whichever way you go in there.
I want to try saying the name of the space. We were looking at the name last night. Tirelessly-wâskahikan?
Yeah. Yeah, wâskahikan.
Wâskahikan.
Yeah.
Tirelessly-wâskahikan.
Perfect.
I love how you described how you can read the syllabics from inside and outside. I think that's such a brilliant way to design that space, because it makes me think of other Indigenous folks coming into this space and how welcoming it feels to have not only the artwork but the language visible like that. And that's such a beautiful and intentional consideration of what makes our community feel welcome. Eli Hirtle works closely with Jo-Ann at the Edmonton Public Library as the Senior Advisor of Indigenous Relations. They also learn the language from both Jerry and Jo-Ann, so I'm curious to learn what it means for them to be in these relationships.
When you're learning from syllabics rather than Roman orthography, first you learn the real pronunciation of the word, and then you begin to connect with them. You're echoing back their sounds, they're speaking back to you, and what they have to teach us, what they have to contribute to us walking on this earth, we begin to connect with that. And that's what changes our perspectives. That's why some people are afraid to learn their language, because they know the way they see things, the way they think, the way they feel is going to change. It's going to change.
One of the things I think a lot about is with the city or the library kind of integrating ceremonial processes. I think a lot of times that youth get left out of those, and so there's a lot of urban Indigenous youth that feel alienated from their culture or feel unable to access ceremony. And so I think the library can be a major meeting place where they can meet you and get connected to this whole other world that they're not able to see. And I think once you start working with elders, like others come, and if you have this intention to learn these things and you make a sincere intention, that they do come towards you too.
My mom being adopted out and us finding our family later in life. The first time I heard the language was between my uncle and my grandmother when we were meeting all of our Cree family. They were the two fluent speakers and they were talking to each other. And there was this part of me, it was overwhelming. We were meeting all of our Cree family at once. There's a lot of things going on, but that moment when they were speaking to each other just ignited something in me. And after that time, the times and places where I was hearing the language was in ceremony. It was at sweats. It was prayers and songs and sweats. And so just hearing both of you talk about this being a place for urban Indigenous people to have ceremony take place in the city, I know that they're going to be hearing the language spoken here, where we are right now, and that has so much power to it.
They want to know about their culture, and that's the way. And like I say, that is always sitting there. That's always in the background. That's always part of it. And then having Emily, be part of that. Like, she's got this high position in this library, but when she works with me, I am very aware she is my co-worker. But when she approaches me, like I say, it's like amiskwaciy-wâskahikan, so, a very sacred cultural role, in helping an elder. So she's in a really high position culturally as well, that she's on her way to being an elder herself, that when it's her time to take over, she's going to be that elder for the community. The community chooses the elder, and it won't be long before they recognize that she carries these knowledge bundles and that she has been ordained in certain ceremonies and things like this, and the community sees that and they recognize that. So, and we always tell young people, we have to prepare you because you're next.
I know a lot of elders feel like we shouldn't do ceremonies in cities because there's too much disturbance or interruption. But Jerry and Jo-Ann feel differently because there were so many ceremonies that were done here in particular.
How has it been for you to be learning language from Jerry and Jo-Ann? And I don't want to only kind of make it only about language, because I know through the language there's just so many other teachings that are being talked about and passed along. But I'm curious how that's felt for you after moving back a couple of years ago, and how that feels for you today.
I think the kind of cycle we're in with 9 to 5 and the way life works, I don't foresee us making too many more speakers, and so I think we have to totally rethink. I can do language for 8 hours a week, which is already hard with a full-time job, but if we really want to actually have people that are like Muslim Jerry, they need to be able to dedicate full-time to do that. So what are the structures in our communities that are not allowing us to do? And I don't think we can wait till federal government funding for our languages. We have to just start doing that work.
Yeah, that's something that that's come up in the course of conversation while being out here. Yeah, not waiting for the funding, but doing it as soon as possible. Yeah. And I've been thinking about the same thing, the possibility of doing the Mentor Apprentice program that the First Peoples Cultural Council administers in BC, where they might be similar to what you're doing with Dorothy, where it's a certain amount of hours per year in full immersion. And I'm really excited about doing that if I'm able to, but also anxious, nervous, and thinking of how would I have to restructure my schedule and it's what you're talking about of like priorities and where not only our priorities as individuals, but as communities to be able to support people to do that work.
Yeah, and all these people are so tireless, like they work all the time. So I think me complaining about not having done laundry in 2 weeks and not having any clean clothes and like, oh, I'm lazy, like they just work all the time. And that's because they really care about us and love us and like want us to have this language and all these teachings and that sort of stuff too, so yeah. They really cultivate a lot of kinship relationships like in Amiskwaciy and Saddle Lake and in the city too, and in particular they've built like a new burgeoning relationship with the Edmonton Two-Spirit Society, so really getting into like teachings, Nehio teachings around gender and talking about like our creation story and how there is fluidity around gender and roles and different deities and that sort of stuff too, so which is super important. Though they're not Two-Spirit, I think there's kind of like a lack of connection for a lot of people too, thinking about fluidity of gender around our tradition too, because we have 8 genders within our tradition, but it doesn't get talked about very much.
That's something I think that with, you know, queer, trans, non-binary folks in our communities, like people are so hungry for knowing more about that.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
Mm-hmm. And they've both stated this, that it's important for them to mentor young women because they feel like often, even Jerry, and we've like been thinking about it's not just women that can mentor women too. It's both.
Jerry has worked at the Amiskwaciy Cultural College since the 70s and generously shares his teachings with students and the community. I'm visiting the school to witness Jerry teaching a Cree syllabics course and learn more about the work that he does here.
Welcome to Amiskwaciy Cultural College, the Cree Language Teacher Development Program. I would like to introduce Jerry Saddleback.
Yeah. Anyway, Tawis Tato. I see Tawis Tato. Now that is they're stabilizing each other. So in other words, what we believe in as a Plains Cree people within the whole hierarchy of the entire history of creation story, we believe that the universe is one huge major living organism, is what it is. So that's where we come from when we say the teaching of our syllabics is part of that whole story of who we are as a people. That's kind of like a hope that I get, that if they have enough information as to some of this, how it's being talked about in a very surface level, that they might want to take it one step further, and that's the spiritual part. They'll be able to walk into that. That's always my hope. So that's what I get out of it. That I get a feeling that, hey, maybe this is it.
Where I'd like to go to, trying to figure out ways in my own life to get to a place where I could have, over a period of a couple of years, way more time and space to just be immersed. Because when I went home to Wâskahikan yesterday, and I was in the sweat, and the four older men that were there were all just only speaking in Cree to each other. And it made me think, how can I get home? How can I spend a lot of time back home where everyone is speaking in the language to each other?
It begins to trigger that part of your embracing that part of you to be able to find the answers to that. And they'll come to you, people to say, they have a word for that, nanagatawe. That's the word they use. When they begin to embrace that kind of thought and that thought process, they say that it eventually clicks in for you. Hey, okay, this is what I need to be looking for. Jumping yourself into a pool of where you can't swim, I guess that's kind of like where you start from sometimes. To begin the initial process is, okay, what's the first step in me to take in order for me to, get to the surface of the water, so to speak? What are my movements? What are the key elements of how I'm going to be moving in order to get to where I want to be?
I want to thank you so much for allowing us to be here today.
Thank you.
Hi. After spending time with Jerry and Jo-Ann, I'm inspired to dive back into my own language learning journey with the elders in my life. Witnessing their work and the lives they touch has awakened something in me. Carrying forward our languages and teachings feels more important than ever.